I've written about a requirement that I had in high school, um, that I had to memorize a couple hundred lines of poetry and prose every year, and it was something I absolutely detested. I hated that requirement. Period, new paragraph. Having said that, that is the one thing that I remember in a positive way about my high school experience. I would never delete that looking back upon it, because there's not a day that goes by that I don't quote either in conversations with my friends and family, or write in articles, or when I'm teaching, mention to class. It amazes me how much I can remember a half a century ago and commit, in many times, 3/4 or more of that 10 or 15 lines fairly accurately a half a century later. And it's not just the recall of the lines of poetry or prose, but the meaning of those lines. Case in point, Charles Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities, and it was it was a great novel. And the first paragraph, which in fact is a paragraph, but it is a single sentence, and it's strung together that much of a paragraph in the first page of his novel. His sentences were kind of dichotomies. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was a time of wisdom, it was a time of foolishness. And that comparison runs all the way through. And then he concludes, it is a time very much like the present. And what Charles Dickens is saying is that the time during the French Revolution is very much like the time that he's living in a century later. And what I'm saying is that a little more than a century later, very much like the times that we live in. And Dickens is able to you play this dichotomy out between the times in London and the times in Paris, people in London and the people in Paris. And he plays that out throughout the novel. Lucy, who is a good person, is compared to Madame Lafarge, who is anything but a good person. And so that dichotomy is seen in every page of that novel. And it's not just this person and that person, but sometimes within that same person, there is that dichotomy of the good and the bad. And the character that most personifies that, in my opinion, is a guy by the name of Carlton. It would be nice to say of Carlton that he was a sleazebag. He was not somebody that you want to go out to have dinner with ever. And yet Dickens is always sitting there with the hope that people will change. That they will see the light, that they will understand something and say, now I get it. And Carlton, throughout the entire novel, is what we consider a bad guy. And yet, almost at the end of the novel, he sees the light, and then, he actually gives up his life for somebody else. And that kind of redemptive process is one of the themes of The Tale of Two Cities. And that redemptive process was with a person who is not a good person. And that is very much like the time that we live in. You look at the political right in America. The radical right politically, especially those people who are running for their party's nomination for president, there's nobody that I'm proud of. And I know that this article is not going to change any of those Tweedledee and Tweedledums of the radical right. But I hope that if you, I think that there are some people that can change rather than simply following these leaders or wannabe leaders. All that I'm not asking you to be where I am politically. All that I'm asking you to do is to read this article and think. And think about whether who you are following is really who you should be following. There's nothing I can do with Trump, Cruz, and Hobbes. But there are people that can change in this world. And if we've learned anything from A Tale of Two Cities, it is possible. So I appreciate the time and effort that you've taken to listen to this essay or listen to this video and to read this essay. Thank you very much. Take care.